I never expected my life to change when my millionaire husband slapped me in the hospital. But there I was, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling my nostrils, the beeping monitors taunting my every breath. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I could still feel his hand on my cheek, heating up my skin while ice formed around my heart. It wasn't supposed to be like this. His eyes, usually filled with warmth, now burned with fury. The silence in the room was deafening. My chest tightened. I stared at him, tears stinging my eyes, my trembling hands clutching the hospital gown. The pain from the slap was nothing compared to the betrayal slicing through my soul. I wanted to scream, but it caught in my throat, suffocating me. The walls closed in. My mother was supposed to be by my side, the one who taught me strength. Instead, she was lost in her own battle with cancer, each passing day feeling like a countdown to her final breath. I had been there for her, desperately clinging to hope, and now this? A part of me died that day. The uncertainty of my marriage had always lingered in the corners of my mind. No one knew the hell I walked through to keep up appearances. The lavish parties, the glimmering diamond rings, the money that could buy anything but happiness. My friends envied me. They saw the professional facade of the perfect housewife, but didn't see the cracks that ran deeper than I could hide. Suddenly, he stepped closer, his voice a low hiss, dripping with anger. "You think you can leave me?" The words slid like ice down my spine. It felt like a twisted play I had been cast in without my consent. I wanted to run, to escape this nightmare, but my feet felt rooted in place. Would he hurt me again? The door swung open. A nurse burst in, eyes wide with shock. She caught the tension crackling in the air, glancing between us, uncertainty plastered across her face. I wanted to reach out for her help, but no sound escaped my lips. What would I say? Would anyone even believe me? I thought I had everything, a beautiful home, a life of privilege. Now it all felt like a prison. My heart raced. The fear grew into a living beast inside me. Would I ever find the courage to free myself? And just like that, in a single moment, the trajectory of my life spun violently off course. I didn't know how I would escape this madness. But one thing was clear, I was no longer the woman I used to be. The universe had shifted, and I was caught in its chaotic grip. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I lingered in the sterile room, the shadows of my uncertainty draping over me like a heavy shroud. The nurse attempted to diffuse the tension, her presence a momentary beacon of hope. "Is everything all right here?" she asked gently, her eyes flickering between my husband and me. He straightened, smoothing his expression into a mask of calm that could fool even the most seasoned performer. "Just a misunderstanding," he said, sounding too polished, too rehearsed, like a politician deflecting questions. The nurse nodded slowly, clearly unconvinced but unwilling to pry further. She turned back to check the monitors, leaving me in the suffocating silence. With a flick of his wrist, he dismissed her, the brief confrontation laying heavy in the air. I stared at the wall, my thoughts swirling into a storm. Each heartbeat echoed my dreadful reality. I couldn't fathom the idea of enduring this kind of existence, but every desire to escape felt choked by fear. Suddenly, I heard a soft knock on the door. I turned to see a familiar face through the glass, my father, looking worn and fragile. He'd arrived earlier than I expected, and the sight of him nearly knocked the breath from my lungs. After the chaos of the morning, his presence was both a blessing and a reminder of what I was fighting for. The door swung open, and silence filled the room again as my father stepped inside. The lines on his face spoke of years spent battling his own demons, shadows of regret and worry cast deep. "I heard you were here," he said, concern laced in his voice. "How are you doing?" His eyes flicked to my husband, who was suddenly standing too still, his energy shifting under my father's gaze. "I'm fine, Dad," I replied, an empty reassurance devoid of any real conviction. My husband smiled tightly, an icy grin that made my skin crawl. "Is everything really all right?" My father pressed, taking a step closer to me, his protective instinct flaring. The sensation of being held in his genuine concern felt good, almost like a shield against the turmoil swirling inside me. I hesitated, my voice faltering as the weight of everything I was hiding felt insurmountable. The words were lodged in my throat, and I couldn't seem to voice the truth without collapsing under its weight. But before I could gather my thoughts, he interjected, a cheery facade plastered over his anger. "She's just a bit overwhelmed, Dad. The hospital can be quite taxing." His charm felt plastic, an act crafted for an audience. I was no longer the willing bystander in our performance. "Yeah, it's just a lot to take in. I'm sure she'll be okay," I said, forcing a smile that felt like shards of glass lodged in my throat. My father didn't notice, or perhaps he chose to ignore it, but I could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. As my father took a seat beside me, I felt my husband's gaze roving over us. It was the kind of look that repeated the nightmarish question, how far would he go to maintain control? The oppressive atmosphere constricted around my chest and an unseen weight pressed down as I tried to convince myself that this moment was not a battleground. Just then, my father leaned in closer. "I'm worried about your mother, but I'm also worried about you. If you need to talk, I'm here." The warmth in his voice sent a flicker of hope through me. The connection between us felt like a priceless treasure in this ravaged landscape of despair. I don't want to burden you," I said, biting my lip to stop the tidal wave of emotions that threatened to drown me. But the longing to share my pain was fierce, the longing for escape pulsing beneath my skin, begging for release. "I'll never see you as a burden, honey," he reassured, the sincerity of his words a salve on my wounded spirit. "Just remember, you're not alone." The thought echoed in my mind, "You're not alone." The connection within our family felt like a fragile thread, but it was enough to shimmer through the darkness. I took a deep breath and swallowed hard. Perhaps there was still a way through this chaos, a flickering hope amidst the storm, but then my husband spoke again, breaking the fragile moment. "Let us not drag old wounds into this, shall we?" His voice was syrupy smooth, but his underlying menace seeped through like a slow poison. "Sam, we need to talk about your mother. We both know what would be best for you moving forward." My heart raced as realization washed over me, a dark revelation that twisted my stomach into knots. Moving forward? What did that even mean? My body tensed, knowing that in his schemes, I was merely collateral damage. As my father's eyes glared daggers at him, I felt the room teeter, the fragile balance on the edge of a precipice. Would I have the strength to fight this battle for myself and my mother? My resolve wavered, gnawing at the threads of hope struggling to survive. The chasm between my heart and mind widened, and as desperation threatened to swallow me whole, I wrestled against the weight of the choices that lay ahead. In that moment, the truth resounded deep within me. Perhaps I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore, but for everything my mother had given me, the fire that still burned softly beneath my inhibitions. However, before I could fully grasp the implications of the path unfolding before me, my husband turned abruptly, storming towards the door. "We'll finish this later," he said, voice cold, leaving an unsettling void behind him. My chest tightened as the authenticity of my father's worried gaze settled once more upon me. And in that moment, trapped between my father's kindness and my husband's bitterness, I couldn't yet see the way out. But something was brewing deep within, something formidable and restless, whispering truths I had yet to understand, and then, a realization struck me like lightning, the shocking revelation that shattered my fragile composure entirely. What if the very thing he intended to use against me, the threat to my mother's well-being, was actually the trap that could lead to my liberation? As the door clicked shut behind him, the resonating silence felt like a deep canyon, stretching endlessly between my father and me. My heart pounded in my chest, and I struggled to regain my equilibrium as the moment's tension still hung palpably in the air. "Sam, are you?" my father began, concern etched into his features, but I pulled my gaze away, staring into the abyss outside the window, where the world continued unabated. The golden rays of the late afternoon sun cast a beautiful yet deceptive glow over the hospital grounds, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside me. "I'm trying," I said quietly, a hint of desperation creeping into my tone. "I swear I'm trying." My thoughts darted back to my husband's menacing words, echoing like a storm that wouldn't cease. There was no denying the truth of his threat, a chilling chill that swept through me. "You need to be careful, sweetheart," my father said softly, drawing me back into the moment. "He's not the same man you married. I can see that clearly now." His words struck chords I didn't want to play, a haunting melody of caution that I had long kept at bay. For years, I had held on tightly to the hope that love could conquer all, that beneath the manicured exterior and calculated charm of my husband lay a heart capable of tenderness and empathy. Yet now, each moment spent away from that place of once-believed solace felt like an awakening. I hesitated, searching for the right words. I thought I could make him better, you know? If I just tried hard enough. The tears threatened to spill, their warmth betraying the icy void of self-doubt that had taken root deep within. "You can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed, Sam," my father gently reminded me, his voice gruff yet measured. I glanced at him, finally allowing myself to lean into his words, to let them cocoon me for just a moment. "No matter how much you care, his choices are not your responsibility." I nodded, yet outer calm belied an inner storm. While I understood his advice, I felt unsteady, like a leaf caught in the wind. With each breath, I oscillated between vulnerability and the aching desire for strength, a fierce urge to invoke the courage that had been buried beneath years of compromise. Just then, a soft peck on the door startled me. I turned to see the nurse, a warm smile spread across her face, offering a respite from the onslaught of emotions. "Hey there. Just checking in. How are we holding up?" "Trying to survive," I joked lightly, pleasantly surprised at my own attempt to find humor in the darkness. She laughed, a soft chuckle that fell warmly into the heavy atmosphere, and for a moment, I felt a semblance of normalcy. "I'll take that." "It's good to see a smile, even a small one," she replied, her eyes alight with genuine kindness. "Just remember to lean on the people who want to help, okay?" "Thanks. I'll try," I said, meaning it more than I had intended. The mist of hope began to settle within me again, tentatively pushing back against the shadows. After the nurse left, I turned back to my father, determined to confront the chaos that threatened to swallow me whole. I can't let him consume everything I am, or everything my mother is. But what can I do? "Keep fighting for yourself, Sam. You need to find your voice again," he urged, his eyes piercing through my uncertainty. "No matter what he throws at you, do not bend to his will. Rediscover your strength." "Rediscover?" I scoffed lightly, yet even in that moment, the seriousness of the situation dawned upon me. Could I truly reclaim my own narrative? And if so, at what cost? Just as I pondered this, my phone buzzed violently in my lap. I glanced down to see a message from an unknown number. My stomach twisted with apprehension, and as I opened it, my breath hitched in my throat. "Sam, I know what he's planning. Call me when you can. It's urgent." A chill ran through my veins as a rush of adrenaline gripped my heart. Who was this? What did they know? Fear and curiosity twisted together inside me, a dangerous combination that held the promise of upheaval or liberation. "Sam? What is it?" my father urged, leaning closer, his body tense with concern. "I don't know yet," I whispered, my voice trembling. The ground beneath me felt unsteady, as though the walls were shifting even faster than I could keep up with. This new development, shrouded in mystery, could be the very key to either unearthing the depths of my husband's darkness or solidifying the control he had over my life. "Don't answer it yet. We need to think," my father cautioned, his protective instincts ignited. The fear in his voice mirrored my own, his trust in the unknown looming large. But a part of me, an instinct I didn't quite understand, urged me to respond. The path ahead felt convoluted and dangerously tangled, yet a flicker of hope ignited within me, blazing a trail through the uncertainties. As I stared at my phone, torn between fear and courage, I realized that this moment could change everything. Could it lead me to the strength I so desperately needed? Or would it plunge me deeper into a situation I couldn't escape? What if this is the chance I need? I murmured almost to myself, and as my father's hand grasped mine, I wavered between the precipice of fear and the thrill of what lay ahead. And with that realization came a new wave of questions, leaving my heart racing with uncertainty and hope intermingled, but most strikingly, with the undeniable foreboding that whatever lay on the other side of that text could change the course of my life forever. The air grew thick with a tension that could almost be cut with a knife as I wrestled with the weight of the message that buzzed ominously in my palm. My father's concerned gaze bore into me, searching for a flicker of understanding in the chaos. I felt the sharp thrum of anxiety dancing on the edge of my resolve as the unknown loomed like a dark cloud, one that brought rain and renewal alike. "Sam, you need to be careful," my father repeated, his voice careful yet authoritative, breaking through the fog of my spiraling thoughts. "These types of messages can be anything: delusions, tactics to unsettle you. We can't afford to be reckless." "But what if it's not? What if someone out there knows how to help me?" I countered, chased by a rising sense of urgency. I planned to dismiss the notion, to push it aside, but a burning curiosity ignited that I couldn't allow to extinguish. "Help, or more danger? Please, just think this through. For all we know, it could be him trying to manipulate you into some trap," my father reasoned, his tone laced with fear that stoked the fires of my own. "This is a dangerous game." Yet despite the flood of apprehension flooding me, there was a flicker of rebellion, a deep yearning to take control, to act when it felt safer to hide. Gathering my wits, I took a deep breath, allowing the silence to cradle me. What if this is the chance to be free from him? Maybe I can finally break away. Could that message actually be the low hissing whisper of liberation I had desperately yearned for? The simple thought sent a shiver through my body. I wanted to believe it. But as another sensation coiled in my gut, I fought to keep my hope from spiraling out of control. Suddenly, the vibrant harmony of hospital life erupted through the door as a group of nurses and doctors squeezed into the room, laughter filling the atmosphere. It threatened to break the somber mood that had tightened around us. A doctor I recognized leaned against the doorframe, grinning at my father. "Sam. You remembered the rules about visiting hours, right?" he teased lightly, leaning closer to me. "I hear there's still time for some ice cream rounds on the pediatric floor. Think you can find the energy?" I managed a weak smile, both intrigued and grateful for the interruption. Was this their way of ensuring I didn't stay trapped in anxiety's grasp? "Can you really?" I asked, my eyes lighting up momentarily at the thought of a simple pleasure buried beneath the stress. "Absolutely. After several shifts, ice cream is basically a prescription," the doctor winked. "How about you join? Get some fresh air and take a break from all this heavy stuff?" I looked to my father. The glimmer of worry remained in his eyes, yet there was a hint of a smile breaking through that facade. I weighed my options as I flashed back to the buzz in my pocket. Finding respite in an ice cream trip sounded like the kind of distraction I needed. "Fine," I acquiesced, surprising myself with the ease of my agreement. "But only if you promise to bring back something with sprinkles." Laughter bubbled through the room, momentarily dissolving the thickness in the air. I exchanged a knowing look with my father. A flicker of connection mirrored the brief ease of my tension, revealing a shared resolve beneath our worries. I would not allow the weight of my current situation to define me. As they left to gather ice cream, I clung to the sliver of joy, relishing the illusion of normalcy it offered as I settled back into the unfamiliar comfort of the hospital room. I glanced at my phone again, the unanswered message still flickering beneath my fingers like a flame that beguiled and terrified me. Deciding not to wait any longer, I took a deep breath, my heart pounding as I composed a reply. Who are you? What do you know? Just as I hit send, a wave of unease mingled with anticipation welled up in me. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff before plunging into the abyss. Each heartbeat echoed with a mix of determination amid fear. In those fleeting moments, filled with the blend of hope and uncertainty, I felt a familiar stirring in my chest. The raw resilience that had been masked for so long was beginning to rise again, coaxed to life by the flicker of potential change entwined with my fears. But as my phone hummed violently in my lap once more, the screen lit up with an instant response. My breath caught in my throat as I read the words that swept away what little confidence I had nurtured. You should be more afraid of what he is capable of. Call me back, and look out for your next surprise. A nauseating swirl of dread crashed over me like a tidal wave, washing away the flickers of resolve I had briefly captured. I squeezed my eyes shut as if I could block out the reality that was closing in around me. What surprise? The question gnawed at my mind, more menacing than the shadows that flickered in my periphery. I looked around the room, searching for solace in the sterile surroundings, yet feeling as if the walls were closing in. Could I truly unravel the war that raged just out of sight? Would courage finally rise to meet the chilling whispers of my past, or would instead it drag me into deeper waters than I ever thought possible? Desperation clawed at me as the shadows threatened to consume the small flickers of light. Yet amid the chaos, everything began to turn. The ice cream was a beautiful distraction, its cool sweetness dissolving the weight that had anchored my thoughts for too long. Laughter bubbled from the nurses, filling the quiet corners of my mind, as the warmth of their camaraderie slipped through the cracks of my anxiety. Watching them, I found a bittersweet solace, a reminder of the endless possibilities life could unfurl even within the confines of sterile walls. When they returned, my father had a cup in his hand, a vibrant swirl of colors pinch-hitting as sprinkles danced atop the whipped cream, a tiny victory for our fragile respite. A single bite sent a rush of nostalgia through me, a whisper of youth that was both comforting and disorienting, reminding me of simpler days when threats were only shadows lurking behind playground equipment. See? I told you I'd bring the sprinkles, he beamed, his eyes softening as he watched me savor each bite. I tried to return his smile, but my heart was still tangled in the message that had commandeered my thoughts. Dad, I began, unsure how to voice the gnawing fear that blended with my temporary happiness. What if the message isn't a trap? What if it is a lifeline? He set down his coffee and leaned closer, the humor retreating momentarily from his gaze. Sam, we need to keep our focus. I trust you, but we can't let ourselves get lost in hope when it might blind us to the reality of your situation. I nodded, unlocking a new vein of understanding, yet rebellion tinged my next words, heated and fervent. But aren't we at risk either way? What's waiting for me if I keep hiding? Silence hung thick between us, an unspoken entreaty layered with love and fear. I could feel his heart heavy in the air. It was a familiar ache, the inevitability of disappointment mixed with the longing to shield me from pain. My thoughts flitted back to the message, and an unexpected resolve began to stir. I could feel the hope shimmering, daring to be stronger than despair. I need to make a choice, Dad, I said. My words bared the tremor of vulnerability. I can't keep running. I want to unearth whatever this is. Each risk has to count for something. Even if that means embracing the dark to find the light. Faint acknowledgement shimmered in his eyes, laced with the worry every parent feels when faced with their child's escalating courage. Just promise me that you'll be careful. These games, they get dangerous, and you don't know what you're inviting. Before I could respond, a nurse poked her head through the door, her laughter still spilling into the room, twinkling in the air like little bells. Hey, Sam. The radiologist just came back, and they've got a special game event planned. Want to join? We could really use your enthusiasm. The warmth of her kindness hit me like a lifebuoy in turbulent waters, and despite my spiraling thoughts, I chose that moment to embrace small joys wherever they surfaced. "Sure," I found myself saying, and I followed the nurse, leaving my father behind, still wrestling with his silent fears. As I left the room, the vibrancy of the hospital surrounded me, each footstep igniting my spirits until I saw a program poster taped to a wall. The words "mind games" swirled in bright colors, promising creative distractions that could deflect darkness. Yet, with every ounce of excitement, the shadows loomed large in my mind, even amid the laughter echoing around me. The next surprise lingered like a ghost. Who was watching? What had my life become that I could toy with moments of levity when impending doom felt so close? Finally, we settled into a small room filled with colorful mats and oversized game pieces. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the chaos, and felt a momentary thrill as I joined in. But as the laughter surged, my phone suddenly vibrated violently against the table, shattering the bubble of joy. With trembling hands, I picked it up, heart racing, each beat echoing a symphony of foreboding. My face paled as I saw a number I recognized, one that had once brought me excitement but now felt like a knife's edge poised to slice through the fragile veil I had begun to weave around myself. "Your game was too easy, Sam," it read, sending shivers down my spine. "I hope you've truly enjoyed your time in the spotlight. But everyone knows that the real game starts when you least expect it." The playful laughter faded into a deafening silence as the waves of realization crashed over me. I could feel my optimism begin to wane, the joyous threads I had sewn unraveling at the seams. Something ominous awaited me, lurking just beneath the facade of trust one was building in this hospital, and with every second that ticked by, it felt closer, teasing me with its potential reveal. Returning to the group felt like retreating into a world that no longer made sense, and as their voices faded to a low murmur, I was assisted by the dimly lit specter of what lay ahead, an inevitable clash between the strength I was trying to harness and the darkness I couldn't quite outrun. What kind of surprise had I unwittingly set in motion, and at what cost? The warmth of the bustling room around me was swallowed whole by an impending dread as I stood on the precipice of the unknown, caught between battling contradictions of fierce longing for freedom, and the chilling grip of salvation that felt just out of reach. The vibrant chaos of the game room faded into the background as my thoughts spiraled into the abyss of uncertainty. It felt absurd to be surrounded by laughter while my heart raced with dread, an unwelcome weight making each breath a labor. The reminder of the message throbbed inside my head, battling the fragile strands of hope I just dared to weave. "Are you okay?" A gentle voice pulled me from my reverie. It was the nurse who had invited me to participate, her eyes filled with concern as she looked at my pallid face. "Yeah, just thinking too much," I managed, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. The laughter around me felt distant now, a reminder of what I was risking. Clutching my phone like it was a ticking bomb, I swung my gaze back to the group, hoping for distraction. "Come on. We're about to start the next round," shouted a fellow patient, grinning as he waved me over. His enthusiasm was infectious, and reluctantly, I joined the circle. It felt like a lifebuoy thrown in my direction, but the current of anxiety still swirled beneath the surface. As the game progressed, laughter surged around me. Each exaggerated gesture and comedic misstep drew me deeper into their little world, allowing a sliver of warmth to seep into my guarded heart. But between the chaos of oversized game pieces and the sound of joy, the earlier message lingered, an unwelcome specter in the corner of my mind. "Your turn, Sam," someone yelled, snapping me back to the moment. I stood to take my slice of the spotlight, but I felt the eyes of everyone around me turn expectantly. The weight of that attention intensified the grip of dread tightening around my chest. What awaited me outside this bubble? With another deep breath, I forced myself to act smiling, pretending I wasn't battling the jagged edges of fear clawing their way to the forefront of my mind. But it was getting harder to dive into the innocence of the game when each peal of laughter was undercut by the inner whisper I couldn't silence. Something was coming. As the game continued, an unexpected glimmer of light flickered to life. An older patient, seated across from me, leaned in, his frail hand resting on the game board. "You have a spark, don't you?" he said, his voice soft but steady. "Don't let fears dim that shine." Surprised, I glanced up at him, taken aback by the kindness in his gaze. "I'm trying," I admitted, feeling the vulnerability rush forth like a wave. He nodded slowly. "I know what it's like to feel lost amid the storm, believe me. But sometimes, the courage to embrace joy even in the darkest times can be a lifeline. It's a reminder that you're still living, still fighting." His words were a delicate hand gripping my shaking heart, offering me hope even when shadows danced in the corners of my mind. Something about the authenticity of his vulnerability resonated within me, suggesting that even in this chaotic place, threads of kindness could bridge our hidden storms. But just as I began to feel the comforting warmth of connection, my phone buzzed again, this time more insistent, pulling me back into the haunting reality. Heart racing, I glanced down, dreading what I might see, and my breath caught. "Your real trial begins now. Are you ready for what's coming? The only way out is through." Panic clouded my thoughts, swirling with the words of the elderly man, still echoing in my ears. I was caught between two worlds, the one where laughter reigned, and the one cloaked in shadow, creeping closer. I felt like a marionette, strung up between hope and despair, unable to discern which puppet master held the power. "Everything okay?" The older man's gaze was steady, offering reassurance that momentarily calmed my racing heart. "Yeah, just a lot on my mind," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. But I could feel the threads of possibility potentially fraying within my grasp. As the game wrapped up, the other players erupted into cheers, but I felt myself retreating into solitude. What kind of trial would I face? Who was orchestrating this game, and what strings were they pulling to draw me deeper into the labyrinth of despair? Moments later, my gaze drifted toward the door, where I spotted a figure lingering in the shadows, eyes trained on me. Recognition flooded my veins with ice. For a brief flash of recognition, the world shrank around me, confusion and fear blooming like a wildflower in an unforgiving desert. It was him. The man from my past, disguised by echoes of time. What was he doing here? How did he find me? My heart raced, trapped between disbelief and the guards I had erected around my heart, stood frozen, as our gazes met, 100 memories swirling within that brief connection, each one a thread in the tapestry of my life that I thought had been left behind. But now he was here, threatening to unravel everything I had fought to reclaim. As the volley of noise washed over me, joy twisted into terror. What did he want? And more importantly, what was I willing to sacrifice to protect my fragile newfound hope? The game I had joined continued, but the real battle was only just beginning, echoing with a whisper, one that warned. The stakes were much higher than I initially thought, and every decision bore consequences I could never have imagined. The vibrant chaos around me faded into a dull roar as I stood frozen, heart skittering against my ribcage. The familiar face lurking at the doorway, cloaked in shadows, sent tremors of dread coursing through me. The game continued without me, cheers and laughter floating in the air like distant memories, starkly contrasting the storm brewing within. My mind raced, sifting through moments from a time when everything felt certain, the soft laughter shared in dimly lit cafes and the tender glances exchanged under the moonlight. Yet here he was, a specter from my past, shredding the gossamer threads of safety I had worked hard to cultivate. "What do you want?" The words escaped my lips before I could contain them, sharp and slicing through the din of laughter. I was startled at how strong I sounded despite the turmoil churning just beneath the surface. His expression softened, revealing a hint of regret. "Sam, please. Can we talk?" "No." My voice was firm, though my resolve wavered as I felt the eyes of the room turn to our small corner. "You have no right to be here." He took a hesitant step forward, and I instinctively retreated, pulling away from the warmth of the game and its camaraderie. The laughter felt like a taunt now. Everyone remained oblivious to the cracks beginning to form in my heart, threatening the fragile hope that had emerged amidst the chaos of my new reality. Just give me a moment, he pleaded, desperation lacing his voice. I swear I'm not here to cause trouble. I came to check on what? Your past mistakes? You walked away, and now you think you can just come back? Anger surged through me, a fire igniting the cold dread, he sighed, glancing around at the curious eyes and the laughter that had receded to a soft hum. I didn't walk away, Sam. I was lost too. I didn't know how to help. I made mistakes. Your mistakes almost cost me everything, I shot back, emotions spiraling. The warmth of the vulnerable moments shared circulated in my veins like bittersweet wine, intoxicating yet painful. Every word served as a reminder of the scars I had fought to conceal. Please, hear me out. His voice was low, compelling. I know you're going through something. I know it's hard. I'm standing here because I miss you. I need to explain. What could he possibly say to undo the past? To mend the heart that was still wedged against the shards of shattered promises and metaphorical bandages? I leaned against the wall as I fought the wave of emotions crashing over me, battling the tangled threads of nostalgia with the sharpened edge of present reality. Just leave, I murmured, my voice cracking, a mixture of anger and longing. I turned back toward my friends, searching for solace, but they were all thoroughly engaged with one another. The joy around me felt like a facade, one I was teetering on the edge of. Sam. His voice was a tether I couldn't shake off. Just give me a chance. There's something you need to know, something about what you're facing. I squeezed my eyes shut, digging my nails into my palms, desperately willing for my emotions to settle. What does that even mean? But it was too late. The words had escaped him before I could stop them, and the implications hovered heavily in the air, their nebulous shape promising revelations I wasn't ready for. I felt the walls I'd carefully constructed start to crumble, and in that moment, the older patient's words resurfaced in my mind, bright and steady like a lighthouse through fog. Could courage really be a lifeline away through the storm, rather than a shield to hide behind? Why should I believe anything you say? My voice trembled, a whisper against the noise. I wanted to believe that the spark of hope he had ignited within me wouldn't fizzle out before it had a chance to ignite. Because I know about the message, he replied, his voice low but indomitable, piercing the facade of laughter like a shard of glass. The room around me fell silent. Time warped, the weight of his words anchoring me to the spot. My breath caught painfully in my throat as the implications settled in the words of the ominous message that had haunted me. Somehow, he knew. How? Why? What are you talking about? I managed to murmur, the reality spiraling into an abyss of uncertainty. My heart raced, pounding against the very walls I had fought so desperately to reconstruct. He stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. I have information that can help you navigate whatever's coming. Please, let me in. The fear and confusion battled within me, but the flicker of hope ignited by our connection from the past surged forth. The storm was coming, swirling around us with relentless energy. Yet, I felt a brief flicker of light amidst the darkness. But at what cost? Despite the storm outside, I stood on a precipice, balancing above an uncertainty more profound than I had ever known. Sam, he said, and the urgency in his voice settled against my restless heart. They are watching you. You need to trust me before it's too late. And just like that, upon the cusp of connection and betrayal, I was thrust deeper into a world where betrayal twisted into unexpected allies, leaving me questioning every single choice that led me to this moment, the moment that could change everything. The vibrant chaos of laughter and joy resumed around us, but it felt like an echo of a world I no longer belonged to. My heart raced as I stood rooted, the magnitude of his words pulling me into a whirlpool of uncertainty. They are watching you. Those words reverberated in my mind, and the shadows in the back of my thoughts darkened into something much more sinister. Who is watching me? I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. The anger had swelled, masking the unease beneath, but I could sense the reality that loomed, ready to pounce if I didn't take control of the situation. He hesitated, and for a moment, I caught a glimpse of the boy I had once loved, the one who had whispered promises under star-speckled skies. But in that heartbeat, the remnants of our past tangled with the foreboding weight of present danger. Honestly? You can't be safe if you don't know. He glanced around, fingers twitching as if he were contemplating some invisible danger crouching among our friends. A lot has happened while you thought it was just you fighting your demons. My breath hitched. What the hell does that mean? Just you need to sit down and actually listen. Not here, he implored, urgency crackling in the air between us. The warmth of the gathering felt increasingly far, like a distant star out of reach, while the chill of darkness loomed closer and my fingers trembled as I tried to decipher the truth stretching out just beyond my grasp. You expect me to just walk away? He nodded, desperation edging his eyes. Just come with me. It's safer. I could see the fight in him, the remnants of the passion that had once united our lives, but could I trust it? Trust him again? No. My refusal came out sharper than I intended, armed with memories of betrayal that hit like a slap across my heart. You don't get to act like everything is okay when it's not. You lost that right. I know, and I'm sorry. I can't change the past, only explain the present. Please, for once, believe I'm here to help. The room around us started to swirl again, not with laughter but with whispers and the prickling sense of eyes observing our exchange. I felt exposed, naked in my vulnerability, with the stakes rising like an ominous tidal wave. Is that why you've come back? To save me? I spat, the fury spilling over like boiling water. With each moment, the weight of his presence pressed down harder on me, and yet, a flicker of warmth ignited from the depths of my weary heart. He sighed, the air between us becoming charged with the currents of our shared past. I know it's not enough, but this is bigger than both of us. Just give me 20 minutes to explain. The chaotic atmosphere of the gathering faded into a muted melody, leaving my heart echoing against the backdrop of his desperate plea. I was caught between the terror of being plunged deeper into the tumultuous sea of my past and the thin, glimmering thread of possibility he offered. But at what cost? The proverbial storm clouds were no longer just talk, a dark dread brewed, and suddenly every laugh, every smile directed my way, felt like a thin veneer hiding something much more sinister. A flutter in my stomach turned into something resembling fear. What's coming? His mouth opened, but before he could respond, I heard a voice that echoed through the crowd, a familiar tone rising above the dim chatter. Sammy. It was Caroline, my closest friend, her eyes wide as she approached, her smile faltering as she assessed the tension between Xander and me. What's going on? The panic swelled in my chest, tightening like a vice. Just then, the front door swung open, and another figure entered, tall and composed, yet every step radiated authority wrapped in a cloak of danger. I recognized him immediately, though I wished I hadn't. Mason, the man I'd spent the past months trying to forget. His chilling gaze locked with mine, and the air shifted around us. I didn't know we had a reunion planned, he said smoothly, though the underlying menacing edge couldn't be masked. Xander stiffened beside me, his eyes narrowing as he perceived Mason's arrival. You shouldn't be here, he warned, protective instinct surging, as if he had forgotten the nature of our own entangled past. Mason smirked, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. And yet, here I am. My heart raced as two forces collided, each carrying fragments of my history, a testament to what I had fought so hard to escape. The familiar taste of fear danced on my tongue, mingling with the hope that flickered like a timid candle in the storm. Why are you here? I demanded, steeling myself against the tides of uncertainty crashing against the fragile dam of my emotions. I came to deliver a warning, Mason said, and my stomach dropped at his words. You need to be careful, Sam. There are consequences to digging too deep, and they're coming for you. The gravity of his words pressed down tightly around me, compressing the space until I felt enveloped by an impending wave of dread. Suddenly, I was lost between two men, one littered with fragmented memories, one tied to unspeakable fears, and the storm of my reality spun with renewed ferocity around me. My heart pounded in discord as I realized the darkness wasn't just lurking in the corners of my mind, but rather it was spilling into the very fabric of my present, threatening to consume everything I had fought to protect. Stood at a crossroads, the world before me splitting and shifting, each path leading into the depths of uncertainty, and around me, the shrouded whispers of danger tightened their grip with every thudding beat of my heart. Would I have the courage to face what lay ahead, or would I find myself slipping once more into the shadowy abyss that threatened to swallow me whole? The laughter continued to ring out around us, mockingly cheerful, blurring the edges of my panic. I felt like a marionette whose strings were fraying, leaving me to dangle in mid-air, uncertain of every movement. Xander's presence was a tether to my past, while Mason's glare seeped into the marrow of my bones, reminding me of the shackles that had once held me tight. Consequences? I echoed, my defiance cracking under the strain of emotions. My mind raced back to the moment I had first met Mason, a whirlwind romance that spiraled into confusion and heartbreak. What consequences had I woven into my life that still mapped out my present? I struggled to hold on to my ground, but the tremors underneath sent waves of doubt thrumming through me. Sammy, listen to him, Caroline urged, her expression shifting from worry to dread as she took in the tension wrapped tightly around us. Whatever it is, please just know. I interrupted, storm rising in me again. You don't understand. He's just playing games? Mason cut in smoothly, his voice a silken dagger. I assure you, I'm not the only one. The stakes are far higher than your petty romantic drama. Xander's shoulders squared as he faced Mason, and for a moment, the air crackled with an electricity that pulled me back and forth between them. This isn't a joke, Mason. You don't get to toy with her life anymore. You've done enough damage. I felt a flutter of hope at Xander's words, a flicker of what I remembered as safety, but the shadows lurking on the outskirts of my mind told me this was only a tease, a cruel trick of light before the inevitable crash. I'm not here to toy, Mason replied, his tone icy yet thoughtful. Believe it or not, I'm trying to help. But you need to understand that whatever you're looking for won't just come knocking on your door. It might knock you flat on your back. What are you talking about? Help? The words caught like thorns in my throat. I realized the chaos surrounding me was not just a backdrop of a fun gathering but a tempestuous storm brewing just beyond the surface, a reflection of the turmoil within me. I struggled for coherence, but Mason's dark presence threatened to eclipse all rational thoughts. The crowd around us shifted, the laughter continuing like a distant echo while I felt the world tighten like a noose. I knew keeping my life intact was a full-time job, yet it had never felt this precarious before. Let's step outside, Xander suggested, his eyes sliding back to me, rife with concern as if he could read the flurry of thoughts spiraling through my head. It's not safe here. No, I started, but Caroline grabbed my arm, her grip firm but gentle, drawing me closer to her side. Just for a minute, Sammy. We need space. The air was laced with quiet apprehension as a knot formed tightly in my throat. The rest of our friends were oblivious to the unsettling force that had settled between us, lost in merriment while we stood on the precipice of something dark and painful. As we stepped outside, the cool night air hit with the force of a slap, grounding me momentarily. The moon hung large above us, but even its light felt dimmed, overshadowed by the gravity of our conversation's weight. What do you mean they're coming for me? I confronted Mason, who leaned against the cool brick wall, arms crossed, his expression inscrutable. Not just you, he corrected, the corner of his mouth lifting in a sardonic smile. They'll come for everyone you care about, too. The longer you stay in the dark, the more vulnerable you become. You've opened a door you can't close. Who? What door? I pressed, each word feeling more desperate and urgent, as if uncovering the truth might unlock some hidden power within me. Do you remember the files? The ones you thought you hid so well? The words hit me like a slap. I had buried those files in the depths of my mind, along with the memories that haunted me. But it was the one shred of evidence, the last piece of a puzzle I'd spent countless sleepless nights trying to forget. Those I breathed, my mind spinning back to dark memories I have tried so hard to bury. How do you know about those? You were nothing but a ghost of my past. His gaze darkened, unearthing emotions better left undisturbed. Because I've been watching. Don't you realize the threads come together? You're not the only one tied to that dark world, Sammy. You never were. A chill raced through my spine, ice cold, leaving me momentarily paralyzed. It all felt too raw, too close, as if a needle pricked the edges of fragile hope wrapped around my heart. You're scaring me, I admitted, the words slipping truthfully out. Good. Mason held my gaze, the intensity pulsating between us like a live wire. You should be afraid. Because the moment you step back into that world, you become the target. And I can't protect you anymore. Xander stepped closer, an unspoken barrier forming between me and Mason, fierce and burning. Loyalty forged through shared pain flared with every breath I took. No one is going to hurt her, he asserted, determination stark in his voice. Mason smirked, betrayal in those eyes that had once been a safety net. You really believe that? The anger surged again, waves crashing violently against the calm surface of my resolve. What do you know about protecting anyone? I shot back, anger rising to the surface, deflecting the sense of calamity cascading down the back of my neck. He stepped closer, shadowing my spirit with a chilling proximity. More than you think. But you need to trust me, Sammy, if you want to have a fighting chance. The words hung suspended in the air, vibrating my skin, leaving me torn between two worlds. One echoed with laughter and light, the other was tangled in webs of darkness where I had lost too much already. Then came a sudden rustle from the alley, a shattering noise that made all our heads whip around. The shadows danced in the dim light, and for the first time, fear smothered the hope I had clung to so desperately. What was that? Caroline whispered, her eyes wide, and before I could react, the moment exploded into chaos. A countless pair of footsteps stomped toward us, the gleam of cold steel catching the moonlight. The reality of our situation crashed down harder than the stormy waves of my tangled heart. I was thrust into an unyielding battle for my life, with the ghosts of my past coming back while my fragile piece of happiness hung precariously in the balance, and just like that, I knew it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about sparing those I loved, the consequences of the door I'd dared to reopen. But as the shadows poured closer, a chilling thought settled deep in my gut. How could I fight against the monsters that came from within when the true terror lay just beyond reach? I stood at the cusp of a storm, my heart racing as fear danced along my spine like an unwelcome guest. The laughter and warmth from moments ago faded into an anxious hush as the echo of harsh footsteps grew louder, closing in around us. I felt the heaviness of the world pressing against my chest, yet in the storm, curiosity and dread intertwined fiercely. An internal war waged relentlessly, leaving me trembling at the precipice of unknown danger. Stay close, Xander urged, positioning himself protectively between me and the oncoming threat, his body tense as he prepared for whatever chaos awaited us. The warmth of his presence, however brief, offered a flicker of reassurance amidst my suffocating panic. I caught Caroline's eyes, the worry etched across her face morphing into the kind of fierce resolve that reminded me of why I had fought so hard to hold on to hope. But in that moment, the chaos burst forth, shadows swirling as figures emerged from the dark alleyway, men clad in black, their eyes steely with intent. The air thickened with danger, crackling like a live wire, each thud of their footsteps hammering home the reality of our situation. The past I had tried so desperately to escape was colliding head-on with my present. Mason. One of them called, his voice a vicious growl. You shouldn't have interfered. This doesn't concern you anymore. A shiver swept through me, and for one torturous second everything hung in the air, not just my life but the ties that bound us, the unspoken truths teetering on the edge of exposure. Mason's face tightened, as if grappling with his own skein of fear, but behind him lay the gravity of choices made and consequences yet to come. Get behind me, Sam, Xander commanded, stepping further into the shadows of the alley, eyes blazing with a mixture of protectiveness and anger. He had woven himself into the very fabric of my fight, igniting the embers of strength I thought I had lost long ago. Still, a burning question lingered. What could I do in a world where shadows moved in swift succession towards inevitable darkness? But I started, the instinct to stand my ground thrumming through me. Every fiber of my being screamed for clarity amid the chaos, a realization igniting in the depths of my heart. I was no longer a victim hidden away from my fears. They advanced, silent as ghosts, a chorus threatening to drown out our brief glimmer of safety. I could sense the energy around us shift, thickening into an oppressive haze. I caught Mason's stare, and in that unbroken connection, I saw flickers of remorse, a desperation that called to the humanity I remembered lurking beneath the surface. Sam, listen to me, he urged, his voice deceptively calm in the face of increasing tumult. They've been watching you, I swear. This is bigger than what you think. You don't know what you're up against. But before I could process his words, Caroline stepped forward, anger flaring in her chest. What's happening? Why are they here? What do you all want? She shouted, unfurling like a flag in a raging storm. We want what's ours, the leader of the ominous group replied, a cruel twist forming on his lips. And it has been long enough since you've meddled, Mason. In an instinctual reaction, I reached out for Caroline's hand, squeezing it tightly. With our shared strength, something ignited between us, a rebellion against the shadows encroaching upon the flickering light of our reality. Tell us what you've done, Mason, I demanded, my voice steady despite the tremors of uncertainty still coiling within me. What did you bring back with you? You can't just leave me in the dark. Mason hesitated, his resolve visibly cracking under the weight of the truth, but the leader of the figures lunged forward, threatening to fragment the fragile connection we had just begun to build. In an instant, Xander stepped between us, muscles taut, a wall of fierce determination rising from within him. We won't let you take her, he said, his voice ringing with palpable courage. What makes you think you're in any position to protect anyone? The leader taunted, stepping dangerously close to Xander, and I could feel that despair inching towards unwelcome territory. But it was then that I remembered the message: your real trial begins now, each word reverberating through the very essence of my being. I couldn't allow the shadows to prevail, and I wouldn't let them take away everything I had fought to keep: my voice, my strength, my future. You don't get to dictate my fate, I said, my tone ringing out with defiance like a battle cry forged in flame, surprising even myself. Every gaze shifted towards me, and within myself, I felt the courage swell, as if the pieces of my resolve were snapping back into place. You don't know who you're messing with, I added, my words unfurling into the cool air with newfound determination. In that moment of confrontation, uncertainty fell away, revealing the raw truth. I was more than just a victim to this orchestrated chaos. I was reclaiming my narrative, and I had allies, real, unwavering strength coursing through our shared bond against those who threatened to consume us. But that spark of courage clashed against the reality. Fear hung in the space between us like an electric charge, tense and ready to ignite. The mysterious echoes of my past and present surged around me, a tempest that dared to intertwine. As I faced what lay ahead, the question of whether I could forge a new path was not one of choice, but rather, who would join me on this journey, who would fight by my side. And then their leader raised a hand, silencing the air thick with tension, his expression twisting into something resembling a mix of irritation and amusement. We won't waste time with threats for much longer. If you want her to be safe, you'll learn to play the game smartly, Mason. And you will follow the rules. This isn't your playground, I blurted, my heart racing against the odds we faced. My courage surged through me, but fear nipped at the edges, threatening to snuff out the flicker of independence I had ignited. No, the leader shook his head. But you're about to find out what happens when you don't play by them. And just as those final words tumbled into the open air, chaos erupted. A flurry of movement stormed through the alley, escalating into full-on disarray. The shadows shifted, the line separating friend from foe blurred in an instant, as fists flew and adrenaline surged. I felt a blast of heat surge through me as I tumbled to the side, my heart pounding as if it could race out of my chest. Xander grabbed my arm, pulling me against him as chaos erupted, confusion wrapping around us like a suffocating fog. "Stick close," he shouted, determination blurring any fear. The confusion escalated, my voice rang out in futile shouts as everything crumbled in a spiraling tableau of faces and threats, heard yet muffled by the rising urgency. I whipped around, adrenaline pushing me toward the only certainty I held: the fight for my life and those I chose to protect, and just then, amidst the disarray, everything seemed to freeze, as time twisted and warped the weight of the moment, grounding us against an oncoming tide. The trial had officially begun, but it would not dictate my outcome. I would rise from the ashes of my fears, armed with the courage to face the shadows and reclaim my fate. Fueled by that fire, I charged forward, hand clasped tightly in Xander's grasp. "Let us go," I cried, determination pulsing through my veins as we pushed against the encroaching darkness. And it felt like the beginning of something far beyond what I had imagined: a fierce revolution brewing within and around me, waiting to unleash itself against all that sought to consume me. With every step we took, the shadows no longer felt insurmountable. I was alive, and for the first time in a long while, ready to embrace that truth, an indomitable force calling to me from depths long thought subdued. Only now was the real game unfolding, but I was no longer just a pawn in it. I was ready to become the queen, willing to embrace the fight because I knew one thing for certain: my story was far from over, and I would rewrite it on my own terms. And in the chaos of that uncertain night, surrounded by danger and an intertwining past, I vowed to emerge stronger, determined, and unyielding. Amidst the storm, I could finally see the glimmer of morning on the horizon, a new dawn forever etched in the fight that was mine to win.